All right, so I've been getting a ton of phone calls and text messages talking about Bul Auto and Karma Albany and Karma Jacksonville and whatever. So there's no secret that I over the years have built a relationship with Val, the owner of Bul Auto, and his best friend Rob, who sounds like, to my understanding, took over the New York dealership when Val opened up the Florida dealership. I keep getting phone calls and texts from friends and stuff reaching out, and like, I love the support. Thank you guys. But I'm okay. The media, on the other hand, is hitting me up and they want me to do interviews. And the problem that I have with all of this is like, it sounds like Val did some really bad things to people, and like, yeah, I'm a victim on some capacity, in which case I'll kind of explain in this video. But like, I'm going to do this video and I'm going to be done with all this because there's nothing that I can do. And it's kind of gut-wrenching, and it changes the way you feel about people as a whole when you realize or recognize that like somebody that you cared about and you considered a close friend and family did some really awful things to you and a bunch of other people. It sucks. Val and his wife Nadia they were at my wedding. There's just a lot of history there, and there's not really much that I would just want to put out into the universe for everybody to know, other than I'll just tell you the truth of what I understand or what happened, and we'll kind of go from there. So to kind of get into it, I met Val in 2014. I went to buy a vehicle I went to Keeler to buy a Mercedes C-Class. It's the first nice car I ever got. I had started finding a little success in my career, and basically I had like a check. I had gotten a commission check for like $8,000, and I had an old Chrysler 200 with like 1 million miles on it that was worthless, but I had a big bank loan on it. So I went to Keeler, and they were like, "Hey, your credit stinks." I think my wife and I laugh about it, but I had like a 480 credit score, or 490, something like that. So Keeler was like, "Listen, you need to pay your bills to get your credit score up, and you're way upside down on your loan, and no bank's gonna take on that negative equity, et cetera, et cetera." So I went to leave, kind of frustrated, upset, whatever. Again, because I had like $8,000 on me. I was trying to buy a $20,000 car. I literally thought that I could get it done, but I couldn't. So the sales guy on the way out was like, "Listen, there's a used car lot down the road. Guy's name's Val. Go talk to him. Maybe he can make it work." So at the time, Val's dealership was on Fuller Road. It was still called Bul Auto. I went down there, met Val, and long story short, like, we kind of hit it off. He understood what I was trying to do. He even talked me out of buying a Mercedes at the time. He said, "Buy a BMW, it'll last longer. It's more dependable based on the fact that you don't know what your long-term income is going to be." It came with, at the time, BMW had a great like manufacturer's warranty and a maintenance package that came with every single car. Like, it really was like a nice deal for me at the time, given the circumstances. So I thanked him. Somehow he got me out of the Chrysler, got me into the BMW. And from there on, I kind of was like, okay, I'm just going to go to Val every time I need something. So fast forward, I had bought that in like middle of 2014. Now it's the end of 2015, and I had bought a Mercedes, or I'm sorry, a BMW 328 at the time. It was before they went to like the fives. So my dad gets sick in 2015, and we find out that I'm gonna have to start taking him to New York City to get cancer treatments. So I call Val and I said, "Listen, the 3 Series isn't big enough. I need a 5 Series or something bigger." I don't even think I said I need any. I just said I need a bigger car. And Val was like, "Yep, no worries, no problem. Come to the dealership." Again, he was still on Fuller Road. Come and I'll pick out a car for you. It'll be waiting for you. As simple as that. Obviously, business was still pretty good. I didn't really have a problem getting financing at that time. So I drove down, dropped the keys to the 3 Series off, and he had gotten me a 5 Series. I got in it. It was a beautiful car. It was a great car. My dad really loved it. We were taking long trips to New York City, so like, it was just a comfortable car, and it fit me and my family and my dad. So we used it, and honestly, we loved it. And, my relationship with Val continued. Fast forward to 2016, the end of 2016, early 2017. I had now, because I was going back and forth to New York, the 5 Series had a lot of miles on it. How did that work? I was thinking about getting a different car. And at the time, I know this don't judge me, but it was, I forget where I saw the commercial, but Matthew McConaughey was like the face of Lincoln, and they were just coming back with the new Continental. So I looked up who was selling the Continental, who had them, and somebody had it in Rutland. So I went to buy a Continental in addition to the 5 Series, which is so weird because it was 10 years ago and I shouldn't have been driving a Continental, but whatever. So I went, and the Lincoln dealership was basically lied and said there was a Continental there, but when I got there wasn't. And so I got pissed off, and I just said, whatever, I'm not buying anything from you guys. I went down the road to the Cadillac dealership, and the new CTSs had just came out as well. So I had my best friend Bones and I, we went down to the Cadillac dealership, test drove the new CTS. I loved it. So I bought a CTS. So the next time that I saw Val, by now he had moved into the new dealership on Central Avenue, and I saw him, and I told him that I got the Cadillac. And that was kind of the first time that I had a weird interaction with him, where he was like, if you wanted a CTS, why didn't you just come through me? And it was like, well, because, and I was telling the story, and I'm just like, I can't believe I owe you this explanation, but whatever. And he was like, listen, dude, I took care of you when nobody would, I'm loyal to you, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So he kind of made me feel bad. But I was like, look, dude, if I can buy a new car through the manufacturer, then I'm just going to do that. And my understanding, it was like, I don't want to buy a new car from a used car dealership. And that's really what Val was at the time. So nonetheless, I had the CTS. I had the 5 Series still. I ended up trading in the 5 Series when the new Jaguar SUVs came out. And so then I had the Cadillac and the Jaguar. I bought the Jaguar from Land Rover in Albany. So I didn't have any cars with Val. And then when I was getting ready, I ended up, I wrecked the Cadillac. So like that was totaled out. That was gone. When I had the Jaguar, I had that for a while. I racked up the miles. Again, I was still going to New York City and back for my dad for his cancer treatment. So I ran up a ton of miles. So by the time it hit like 60, 70,000 miles, I was ready to get out of it. And I was trying to get into a Range Rover or something like that. And I went to see Val, and he still kind of gave me attitude, but like was like, listen, I'll take care of you, but like, you're going to have to eat this a little bit. I'm not going to be able to give you a great trade-in value for your car. It was almost like a weird punishment for not going through him. He was like, you're going to have to eat this a little bit, but we'll get back to, getting good deals on or whatever. And again, Val always had this weird thing where he would like remind me that when nobody was willing to talk to me and before I had any money, he was the guy that was there for me. And I'm an empath, and I suffer from codependency. So like it hurt my heart when he would say that. It would make me feel bad. So whatever. I said, okay, well, no matter the deal, I'll stick with you. Get me out of the Jaguar. In which case, I had just gotten, I was married, and we were thinking about having children, and I was like, okay, let's just get a decent luxury car that doesn't cost $1 bazillion. So I bought an Audi A7 through Val. Took on a bunch of negative equity with the Jaguar, but whatever. I was like, I'm just going to keep this and hold on to this. And I, neither here nor there, but I hated that car. I just did not like it. It was a terrible car. I didn't like it. So I only had it for a few months. And that's when, really what happened was I went back to Val and I said, look, man, I hate this car. You got to get me out of it. And Val then kind of just, and again, this is salesman stuff. We aren't even at what Val did wrong yet. I'm just walking you through the whole relationship. So I don't have to answer any more questions ever again about this guy. But, when I went in there, he just said, dude, I know what you're making. It's time for you to step up and start driving some big boy cars. You can afford it. Let's talk about some like getting you into a real nice car. I said, okay, what do you have in mind? And in the showroom, he had a Porsche Panamera GTS. I'll never forget it. So this was 2018. I think the car was a 2016, right around those time frames. And the car was beautiful. I never thought that I would own anything like that. I think it was $80,000 for that car. I ended up putting, I don't know, $20,000 down, and I got into the car and I got the Porsche. And again, I loved it. It was expensive. It was kind of the first car that like put me over the edge where I was like, holy cow, I'm really paying a lot of money a month for a car, but it was a great car. I loved it, and I drove it forever. Like, I had that thing until it had like 100,000 miles on it. I think I bought it with 11,000. So I put 90,000 miles on that car. It was the best car. I really, really loved it. From there, I don't know if I can walk you through every single car that I had bought, but from there, I had traded that in for what the hell did I trade that in for? I traded that Porsche for, at the time, I wanted a truck. And what happened was I thought I wanted just a little truck. I bought a Chevy Colorado from a dealership from another town. And again, he found out that I bought the Colorado, and he was like, hey, when are you going to come in here next? And I said, I don't know, I'll come see you. I stopped in, same thing, kind of like, why would you buy a truck from anybody else but me? And I'm like, Val, you're a luxury car dealer. I didn't know that you do trucks. And he's like, I'll buy you anything you want, you know. And then he's like, and then he went even further this time. He said, listen, let me tell you what happened. And I go, okay. And he goes, what do you think your interest rate was on that Colorado that the brand new Colorado you bought? I go, I have no idea. I don't really get into that. They tell me what the monthly payment is, and then I just take it. And he goes, your interest rate is 5.5%. Do you know what you got approved? And I said, I have no clue, 5.5%. And he was like, no, 3.5%. And then he walked me through how dealerships can upcharge you a certain amount of points. So obviously, it pissed me off about the other dealership. So I was like, okay, get me out of this Colorado and get me out of that loan. I made sure the other dealership was aware that I wasn't happy with what they did, and I won't be buying any vehicles from them again. But again, it's like he reminded me throughout that process. So I ended up getting rid of the Colorado. He had gotten me a Silverado, which I loved, and we kept it. And again, we put a ton of miles on it. It was a great truck. But again, it's like I did something he didn't really like. So at the time when he crunched the numbers, he was like, you're going to have to eat more money on this. Which I don't know what's real or not. I'm not in the car business. I just took it, I get red in the face. Like, I'm sorry, I made a bad choice. I betrayed you, whatever. But sure, get me into the new truck. So I got the Silverado. So I had the Porsche, the Silverado. And then I was like, you know what? I don't really need the Porsche because the Silverado had back seats. Get me a fun car. So we set out to get, I wanted a BMW i8. My wife and I have really always loved BMWs. That was an easy process. I knew what I wanted. It was during COVID this happened, so it took a little bit to get it, but I got it customized. I got it wrapped. It was a beautiful car. I paid $75,000 for it. The Porsche, I took an absolute fucking bath on it. Every time, this was the start of like every time I got rid of a car, it was like you're just eating money. And what would happen was I would try to understand the numbers, and I didn't like the numbers, so I would battle back. But that was good, man. He would make me feel stupid. I'd be like, Val, how did I pay $80,000 for a Porsche? And I'm on cars.com and Car Gurus, and there's not a single Panamera, 2016 Panamera GTS that's less than $50,000, even with 100,000 miles on it. But you're telling me that you're only giving me $30,000 for this car in trade-in, or 34,000, whatever it is. And he would he had a way with it. He'd just say, hey, dude, this is how it works, and I need to do this, and I need to do that, and blah, blah, blah. So took on another bunch of, I literally got rid of that Porsche Panamera. It did have 90,000 miles on it, but I gave it to him for $30,000, which that car I to this day, I wish I still had it in my garage. Nonetheless, I got loved it. The thing about buying cars is even if you're getting a shitty deal, and even if it's costing you a lot of money, there's a certain amount of energy that just gets injected into you when you pull up to the dealership and it's sitting out front, or they pull up to your house with a flatbed and they're dropping it off. It's crazy. And you kind of forget about all that, and then you get excited about the car. So nonetheless, I had the i8. The problem was it was older. I think I paid 70 something thousand for it. It was older, and we had it custom wrapped, but whoever wrapped it, the drainage system in the doors, they covered it with the vinyl wrap, and I kept sending it to them because what happened is every time it would rain, the doors would fill up with water, which obviously is dangerous. There's electronics in the door. So every time it rained, my doors would fill up with water. So I'd go to open the door, and they had kind of like the butterfly doors or the doors that raise up. It would dump gallons of water out of this. And I'm just like, this is crazy. And there wasn't really anything anybody could do about it. It was just the wrap covered the holes unless I ripped the wrap off. And the problem is underneath the wrap, what I found out at one point was that the car was actually traded in because it was owned by someone and his girlfriend had keyed it or something. So wrapping it actually covered up all this stuff. So I was like, well, I can't rip the wrap off. The doors keep filling up with water. I don't want to keep driving this thing. It's pretty dangerous. So I just traded it in and said, get rid of it. In which case I'm trying to think what I got. I think I asked him I got a Karma. So he had been pushing me to get a Karma for a really long time. And I gave in and said, okay, I'll buy a Karma. So I get the Karma, and what a nightmare that was. You know, he gave me this GT that he said was his daily driver. This fucking car, every 20 seconds, the stereo would skip, which you don't think is a big deal until you're driving a car. It drives you nuts. Every 20 seconds, there was just a quick little half a second glitch where the volume would cut out. Additionally, it would just turn off. I'd be driving, and the whole thing would shut off. And then, like, it's electric, so, you know, the only feedback that I got from Val was like, hey, dude, you got to pull it over, and you got to, like, it's almost like a cell phone. You reset it. You restart your phone, and it'll reboot. I would have to pull over, pop the hood, unplug the car, plug it back in, wait 5 minutes, start it up, and drive it again. So it got to a point where I was like, dude, I cannot keep this car, right? And let me go back to the i8. When I went to get rid of the i8 because of the problems that I had with it, and I got the Karma, he wanted to put me in a Karma. I didn't really want a Karma, but he was a Karma dealer, and I understood that it was his job to sell Karmas. I said, dude, I'll buy this Karma, but, like, don't fuck the numbers up. Don't fudge the numbers. Don't, you know, whatever you're giving me on trade, I want to know. And whatever I'm paying for this car, I want to know, because what happened with the Karmas before, he had tried to sell me a few before, and what happened was these cars were sitting on his website for $125,000, and then I would get there and we'd start talking, and he'd start talking about all the room that he had to drop the price of the cars. So I'm like, okay, so this is like one of those things where, like, if someone agrees to pay 125 grand for it, you'll obviously sell it to them. But if you have somebody that's really interested, but they only have $85,000 or $90,000 to spend, and you've determined that you like them or they're a good person to own the car, you'll sell it to them for 80 or 90 grand. So I told Val, I said, I'll take one of your Karmas and I'll drive it. And the thing is like with my career and everything and my lifestyle, I'm out in public. So driving a car with Bul Auto on the license plate, and they're fancy cars and they draw attention to you, like, it's pretty good advertising. And at the time I was younger, not so much anymore. So I said, okay, I'll do you this solid. I'll drive this Karma. I didn't like the car, but I'll do it. But don't fudge the numbers. I want to know how much you're giving me in trade for the i8 and how much you're selling me the Karma for. And he said, okay, I'll be square up. So we went through the numbers before I had bought the Karma. Fast forward now to where I'm having all these issues with the Karma. And finally I called him one day. I said, Val, you got to get me out of this car. I can't have it. It was terrible, you know, and I just said, it's broken. The car's broken. It needs to go back to the manufacturer because it's a brand new car and it's breaking every 5 minutes. So he said, okay, bring it back. What do you want? And it was very similar to before. You know, he didn't do this. I did it. I walked in, and in the showroom, there was a brand new Porsche Cayenne, chalk gray GTS coupe, beautiful SUV. So I said, okay, I want that. trade in the Karma. I want that. The Cayenne he had for sale for $136,000. And typically when I buy cars, he does all the paperwork. I just sign my name, we move on. He tells me how much I need to set up for an auto payment and the account numbers, and I pay it, and it is what it is. I never really paid attention to any of that. Shame on me. But this time around, I said, okay, he told me when I sold the i8 that he was giving, basically I had about $20,000 in equity, right? So I said 20,000. Okay, he sold me the Karma, he said, for like 110. So you take 20,000, now we're at 90. Either way, I was like, there's $20,000 that's going to go into this Porsche SUV that's 136,000. So I'm going to pay 116,000 for it. This is the one time I paid attention to the numbers. I start signing the paperwork to get this thing, and he pulls out the big long sheet that you print out with the archaic printer, and I go to sign my name, and there's $155,000 as the number, is what I'm borrowing. So I said, "Whoa, what is this?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Val, I shouldn't be paying $20,000 over what you're trying to sell this car for. I should be paying $20,000 less. This is a $40,000 difference. Why?" And he didn't really have anything to say. I kind of just caught him off guard. He just didn't think I would look, and I didn't think I would look either. I just happened to see it. And basically from that moment, like, I've been screwed over by people. There's been times where people have taken advantage of, like, how nice I can be and how generous I can be, and it hurts, but usually I take the high road. In this instance, because of the bullshit ass Karma that I drove, and which, by the way, Karma makes a nice car. That particular model was broken, but because of that, and because I specifically asked him not to fuck with the numbers, and then I'm seeing this, I knew he fucked with the numbers. I knew that on paper he fudged all the numbers, and there was nothing he could do. He had to show me the real numbers when I returned the Karma. He didn't think I was going to be returning the Karma. So once he had to show me the real numbers, he had nothing to say. And I mean, we had it out to the point where, I had my best friend Bones with me. Bones left the room. His best friend Rob obviously has worked for him. Rob left the room, and it was just Val and I. And I just said, dude, if you ever fuck me over like this again, dude, it's over. Like, I don't tolerate this. This is bullshit. I've spent, $1 million with you at the time, and this is what you're going to do to me. And obviously I was upset, and I left, and I was infuriated, but I took the car and I left, and we kind of just healed. He called me later that night or the next day, whatever. And he just said, look, I adjusted the price. I knocked an additional $10,000 off. Doesn't really make it right, but I'm sorry. The numbers are the numbers. And Val's just smart. He's slick and he can talk. And he's like, he tried to explain it, and I just cut him off. I said, Val, that's the one time that this is ever going to happen to me. Don't do it again, and we'll move on. But that was really the first time I've ever really stuck up for myself with Val. So I had that, and then everything was kind of good. After that, for a while, everything was straight on. I had the Cayenne for a while. I got rid of that. I bought a Ferrari. I had a Ferrari for however long it was. Again, it's the same shit. I mean, I guess if you want to complain about something, but I'm not, because I'm listening to everybody else's impact stories, and like, no one's really complaining about the dealings of a dealership. So maybe I just need to understand that when you buy and sell cars as much as I did, or trade cars in and buy new cars as much as I did, you're going to take a loss. But like, I think my only qualms other than that was, the Ferrari. I spent $170,000 on a Ferrari. I kept it for a summer or 3 or 4 months. I put 2,000 miles on it. Go to trade it in. It's like every time you go to buy a car, these dealers are like, hey man, the market's up. They're up. And then when you go to trade it in, they go, hey dude, the market's down. So I spent $170 on a Ferrari, try to get rid of it. 4 months later, it's a $130,000 car. I lose 40 grand. Shit like that happens. It's whatever, So I gave him the Ferrari back. He didn't want to give me the trade value, so I said, listen, ship it down to Florida. Now he's down in Florida at this point. I said, ship it down to Florida and keep it in your showroom and put a decent price on it. And let me know when you sell it. And I'll just keep making payments. So that's what he did. And then on top of that, I had bought a brand new Porsche Panamera from a Porsche dealer. So I was driving that. So I was going to trade in the Ferrari. The values were off. And again, this isn't a Val thing, the trade-in value. Even the Porsche dealer was like, I can't really give you what you even owe. You overpaid on the buy, which I can complain to Val about. You know, it was a 2016 Ferrari California T with 10,000 miles on it. I probably should have paid closer to 150, 160, not 170, but whatever. So I own the Panamera. He had the Ferrari, which he held for I made the payments for another 6 months, 8 months, something like that, and then finally paid it off. Now, with that said, I talked to the bank because this is relative to what's happening today, and I'm almost positive that he did pay my Ferrari off. I'm almost positive because I was on the phone with Woodside Credit, and they also are affiliated with Franzen Bank, I believe, they confirmed that they believe my Ferrari. They saw that I had the bank account or the loan, and they confirmed that it's no longer there. So I believe that that's paid off. Additionally, my Porsche. So I didn't like the Porsche. I just felt like it was a little uncomfortable. It was a GTS. Seats were a little hard, and I just didn't really enjoy it all that much. Porsche, they used to make like these really just mean machines. You get in them and they rumble. You could shake the house. Porsche is kind of commercialized now. You turn the car on, it's like a regular car. There's just not a lot of sauce to it. So I kind of didn't really like it. It looked good, but I wanted to get out of it. So I called him, and this is where all the stories are going to kind of combine, but I called him in December or January. No, I called him in November, and I said, hey, look, I want to get out of the Porsche. And he was like, what do you want? And I said, I don't know. And I go, listen, I paid $155,000 for the Porsche new. I'm assuming that you're not just going to give me the sticker price for it. Again, rather than trade it in, just take it on consignment, send it down to Florida. It was, again, chalk gray Panamera GTS. It was a great looking car. I was confident that he would sell it. And he was like, well, what are you thinking about getting? And I just said, well, I'm thinking about, either a Lamborghini Urus or, maybe a Rolls Royce. And we talked, and he kind of ran through the different options of what I was going to get for my budget, etc. And I just kind of let it go. I said, listen, just come grab the Porsche. And they were in a hurry. They were like, we're coming to get the Porsche today. There's a market for it. So they went and got my Porsche. That was probably December. I don't know. Don't hold me to the dates because this is all a blur. But they got my Porsche, and they sent it down to Florida. And then Val called me one day and said, hey, look, I have this married couple. The wife drives a Rolls Royce Wraith. It's red and black. It's really flashy. It's a comfortable car. And the wife doesn't like it. So do you want it? I said, okay, why doesn't the wife like it? And he just said, she wants something a little bit more sporty, so I'm going to put her in a McLaren. And I was like, okay, that story checks out. Cool. Well, so I said, okay, great. And I was assuming, because my Porsche was in Florida, he's talking about he sold a Rolls Royce in Florida, so he was going to have to collect it from the wife and then ship it up to New York to me, and then I would get it. I didn't realize until, I said, okay, cool, do the paperwork. So Val did all the paperwork. I never saw any of the paperwork. And I go, what are you going to do with the Porsche? And he goes, well, I just sold the Ferrari. So I said, okay, I can stop making the payments on that. And then he goes, and I just sold the Porsche. And I sold the Porsche for exactly what you owe. So I said, okay, that's great. Even though I put $30-something thousand on the Porsche. So I'm losing 30 grand on that, but whatever. I don't care. I was like, just get me out of those loans. And then I assumed it was going to be a few weeks for the car. And he just said, are you going to be home in a couple hours? I said, yeah. And he goes, the car will be there in a couple hours. I'm like, how are you getting this from Florida, to Saratoga? And he just said, it's not. It's in New York. I said, oh, okay. So nonetheless, cool. I'm just getting it sooner. So later on that day, it was weird. It happened in like a day. The Rolls Royce is flatbedded to my house. Love the car. It's a great car. I don't think anything about it, right? Because over the years, I've been conditioned by Val where it's like, whenever I went to trade in cars, I always, if you give me 2 keys when I buy the car, when I trade in, I'm going to give you one set of keys back. And if you give me the title, I'm not going to have the title. So I end up paying the fee for the new title. So like through all of that, I was just like, look, man, I'm going to have the title sent to the dealership. I'm going to hold a set of the keys, like all of these things to make sure that I wasn't messing up his business whenever I want to get rid of the car or whatever. So I kind of just trusted that he had everything. So I took delivery of the Rolls Royce in January. Obviously it's winter, so I'm not driving it that much. I guess if it was a warm day, I'd pull it out and go clean it and then put it back in. But I didn't really drive it, just kind of sat in my garage. And I forgot that the plates never came, the registration never came, none of that stuff. I just kind of forgot. So I didn't even realize any of this until a couple weeks ago. But nonetheless, I've had the Rolls Royce this whole time. And what else happened is in February, right? And while I was buying the Rolls Royce, Val was like, you can get a Urus, you can get a Rolls Royce. I said, and I ended up on the Rolls Royce because it was like the Rolls Royce was, I don't even know how much he fucking charged me, to be honest. I have no idea what I paid for it. But I know the Urus was like $250,000. And I was like, I don't want to spend that much on an SUV in the North Country. And it's just going to get salt all over, whatever. I couldn't justify the cost of it. So that's why I ended up going with the Rolls Royce. But when we were trying to decide what I was going to buy, at one point he sent me a picture of a neon Lambo Huracan, and then a neon Urus. And he said, hey, I just bought this, for me and this for Nadia, his and hers, like neon Lamborghinis. It's like, holy shit, you must be doing well, dude. You just spent $1 million, on Lamborghinis for you and your wife. Congratulations. I was happy. I was like, that's cool. And then so this was during when I was buying the car. I took delivery of the car, I think January 24th. February 10th or 9th, he calls me and I don't answer, and he calls me, I don't answer. He calls finally the third time, I'm like, is this important? And he's like, kind of. So I'm thinking it's about the Rolls Royce. So I take his call and he said, listen, dude, I have the opportunity, and it's weird because everybody's saying Alfa Romero or whatever brands. He didn't tell me that. He told me he had the opportunity to, I think, secure the Chrysler or the Jeep franchise for Jacksonville, Florida, which, if you can secure a major brand like Jeep anywhere, you're going to be very successful. Like, Jeep sell themselves in theory. So I was like, oh shit, that's dope. I was really excited for him. I was like, that's awesome. And he goes, well, I have a problem. I have to show that I'm liquid $2 million in order to, I have to show the brand that I'm liquid $2 million in order to secure this franchise. So I said, okay, what are you asking me? And he was like, I need $200,000. And I just said, Val, the craziest thing in the world is to ask somebody for $200,000. No one has $200,000. If you do, congrats. No, I don't know anybody that has $200,000 in cash sitting around. So I just said, dude, I don't have it. B, like, the most that I would invest in anything would be like $5, $10, $15, maybe $20,000, because I don't have the money to just be throwing people that type of money. So he seemed disappointed, and and Val kind of, you're one of my closest friends, and we've been close for this long, and I love you, and all these things. And I'm sitting here, and it's like, I'm a dreamer, and I want everybody to kind of see their dreams through. So my heart hurts. I hang up the phone. I'm just like, fuck, I don't know what to do to help him. I go to talk to my wife. My wife says, listen, we don't give friends money. This is just how it is, because you're never going to get it back. Because Val was like, listen, if you give me $200,000, I can show that I'm 2 million whole. All they need to do is see me, give them a flash view of my bank account. And then once it's done, I'll give you your 200 back. We just move on. So I said, so I'm talking to Rachel, like, dude, he needs $200,000. He only needs it for like 2 days. He's not even going to spend it. He just needs to show that he has it. Rachel says no. So then the next day, like a fucking idiot that I am, I wire him $20,000. I hit him up and I said, what's your bank info? I'll give you $20,000. I can't give you $200,000, but I'll give you 20. But I need it back because I'm gonna walk out of my office right now and tell my wife that I did something that she asked me not to do, and I need you to deliver this back to me. In which case I love you, sent a heart emoji, thank you, this means a lot to me. I wired the money, and that was pretty much that was February 11th, and that was pretty much it. I haven't heard from him since. There was one text exchange where I said, hey, this again, I gave him probably a month, and I texted him, I said, hey, I'm checking on the money. And then what happened with the Rolls Royce, I don't know what happened, but my wife and I got in it one day, and it smelled funny. So I'd called him and I said, was the previous owner a smoker? And he was like, no. And I was like, okay, it doesn't really smell like cigarettes, but it smells musty. It smells like something died in it. I don't know. So he goes, this is what he said, and this is crazy. He goes, well, if the car smells, we're not going to get the smell out of it, so I'm going to have to get you a new Rolls Royce. That's why I said, bro, you've lost your fucking mind. I'm not getting another Rolls Royce because this smells. I will bomb this thing until the smell's gone. So he said, okay, well, I'm just saying it's hard to get smells out of cars. And it's like, understood, but I'm still not going to go spend another $200,000 because this car smells. I'll put some air freshener in. I'll figure it out. So he just said, okay, let me know. And then that was the last time I've ever heard from Val. With that said, I got a phone call, and I won't get into who said what or how, whatever, but I got a phone call from someone that just said, hey, I'm hearing that business isn't good at Val's. So immediately I call one of the members of the company in Albany. We talk. Clearly, nobody's saying anything. Everybody's just kind of like, Val screwed everybody over, and everybody walked out, and it's over. Val's been scheming people for the last couple of years, and blah 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 blah. So this is what I know, and this is how I'm affected. I'm out $20,000, which really sucks. I'm out a close friend that, not only a close friend, he's someone that I sent my network of people that I know to buy cars. Like, I trusted him. He was at my wedding. His lake house was near my lake house. Like, we've been close for years. That sucks. Additionally, the Rolls Royce. So the first video that I see, one of the folks, the gentleman's name is Mike. I think he's doing a great job for advocating for the victims. I don't really want to be a part of it. That's why I'm doing this. But Mike in his video was talking about how basically he got a phone call from Val that said, hey, I got somebody who wants to buy your Rolls Royce from you, and he's willing to pay $10,000 more than what you paid. Bullshit. I didn't fucking say that. That's crazy. I didn't come up with this idea. That obviously, as soon as he says that, I'm just like, you motherfucker, that sucks to hear. But the guy that did the first video, Mike, is the former owner of the Rolls Royce that I have. Now, with that said, I can confirm that Val did pay off that Rolls Royce, and the bank is trying to get a lien release to Mike. So then hopefully I get possession of it at some point. I'm going to call Colony PD at some point and just make a statement, whatever, so they know. But either way, my car is not registered, even though I've had it since January. And for that part, I'm fucking pissed. I put my kid in that car. I have a 3-year-old driving around in the back of a car. I have my wife in that car with me that's not registered. It's not legal. I'm making payments on it every single month. Like, yeah, that stuff sucks, man. It really sucks to hear that happened to me, and somebody did that to me that I consider close. It sucks. I'll live. I'll get over it. And it sounds like Val's done a lot worse to other people. So I don't know how significant my story is, with the exception of I'm going to lend an opinion of what I think happened. Take it with weight, don't take it with weight. I don't care. I'm just going to speak my truth. Like, I'm not going to, and I appreciate the Mike guy for some of the videos, because I can hear the hurt in his voice and his heart too, where he's like, it sucks having to talk about Val in the sense. But the reality is, Val was an immigrant that came over here. He busted his balls to build a business, right? And he elevated himself throughout his journey to the point where he had a pretty successful dealership in Albany. From there, he wanted to expand, in which case he tried to open a dealership in Jacksonville. And in all accounts, what I'm seeing is he just bit off more than he could chew. He opened the dealership in Jacksonville, and it was too expensive. I watched over the last several years Val elevate his life. You know, his cost of living was really high. His just the cost associated with living his life. He was driving $500,000 cars. He was buying homes. He was buying boats. He's treating people to things. Like, his lifestyle changed tremendously versus when he was selling used BMW and Mercedes on Fuller Road. And I believe that this is a product of thinking that you have it figured out, and you're injecting so much capital into a business, and you're not seeing the return that you need. It's starting to bleed you out, and there's at some point there's a choice that you can make where you have to just accept that it's not going your way, and you have to call the people that you believe love you the most and tell them what happened and say, hey, I'm fucking up over here, I need help. And you might not get help, but that's why, you put things in an LLC and you file for bankruptcy protection, whatever the case may be. But like, you can do the right thing. You can make the phone calls and say, hey, I screwed this up. Or you can grab as much money as you can and hightail it out of town. And Val's guilty of hightailing it out of town. I've said it a few times to a bunch of people that have hit me up about all of this. I just said, listen, the captain of the Titanic went down with the ship. Like, there's power in that. There's honor in that. Val just isn't the captain of the Titanic. He chose to protect himself over everybody else. I don't know why. I have no idea why he would choose to do that. Probably because he got so deep that there was no other way. It's like, well, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in jail because I've defrauded people out of millions of dollars. Or I can, he was an immigrant. He's not from the U.S. Or I can grab some money and leave town. I don't know what his plan is, but the long story short, the message that I want to put out there, and I feel this, and I don't even know why I care about saying it, but like, Val didn't start off 20 years ago to rip people off. This is the outcome, and like, shame on him. And I hope that at some point, there's justice is served in that. And I hope that there's, the people that were hurt, and just a lot of money, dude. I've heard some of these stories where people are out $200,000, $300,000. Like, it's awful. I'm hoping that there was business insurance that Val had, or these brands that Val represented step up and try to help some of these victims. I hope everybody can try to be made as whole as possible. The reality is no one knows what's going to happen yet. It's all so quick. But again, I don't know why I feel obligated to say it, but Val didn't start 20 years ago and say, hey, I'm going to get close to every single person in my life, and then I'm going to fuck them all over. Things happen in life, and he made a lot of bad choices, and now it's aired out, but that's it. That's all I can say. Everybody wants to talk to me, and like, I even the media guys, I'm like, guys, there's not much that I can give you because A, I'm a victim, but I haven't been affected nearly as much as a lot of other people. And B, I can see where Val made the turn, and like, the rest of his life, he's going to be made to be this monster, and who knows? I keep thinking like, Jesus, he's going to end up on American Greed or something, but, and rightfully so, he probably will. But it'll be interesting to see the story that gets played out, because what you're seeing with all of these victims is like, they're pissed off, they're hurt, they're scared, they're out a lot of money, which could be a huge financial burden to them. But their hearts are broken. This is a guy that we all kind of cared about. So it sucks, dude. This is a whole shitty situation that I prefer not to speak on. I think we all have pretty busy lives. We all have a lot of things going on. It sucks that every 5 minutes that I'm in between doing this or doing that, Val's popping into my head, and this whole car thing, and the fact that I have a Rolls Royce sitting out there that technically I don't own yet. I don't have the title for it. I don't know. This is a crazy situation. But what I can tell you is I'm thinking about everybody that was affected by this. I'm not going to point fingers. I had a really good relationship with Rob. When all this happened, I called Rob and I just said, hey, dude, I'm thinking of you. I want you to protect yourself. and do what you need to do to take care of yourself. I don't know what role anybody played in all of this. What I do know is, though, it might not have been the captain driving the Titanic into the iceberg. It might have been somebody else, but the captain stayed on the ship. You know, if with Val, if he had his employees doing anything bad for him or whatever, it's not up to me to judge them. This is a legal thing. But like, Val's the captain. Val's creating the rules. Val's the one laying out the blueprint for people. I'm not trying to diminish Rob's responsibility or anybody else that might be involved, but I'm simply saying Val is the guy. You know, when you sign up and you take that leap and you're the brave one to start a company in this world, or at least in the US, you know, people join you because they believe in you and they see your dream, or maybe they just want a job. Who the fuck knows? But at the end of the day, if you're the king of your company, you know, this all rises and it all sets on you, man. Nobody else, you know. I'll leave the rest up to the legal system. My heart's with everybody, you know. Rob doesn't have a job now. I don't know, you know, Darren, maybe he went somewhere else. I don't know. And I don't want to name anybody else, but whoever doesn't have a job, I hope that you find work, and I hope that you find a way to supplement the income that you've lost in all of this. For anybody that thought that they sold a car and it never got paid off, so now they still have that debt, my heart's with you guys. Like, I'm so sorry. It's so unfair. I can't imagine that there wasn't better checks and balances. Like, what a crazy world we live in where you can even get away with something like this these days. But the fact that this has affected you guys, you know, even Mike, you know, I had your Rolls Royce. Thankfully, it got paid off, but I know that you were making some payments. I'm sorry, dude. I'm really sorry about that. Your Lamborghini, it sounds like you got it back, or you're going to get it back, or what have you. But irregardless, somebody else had it. And with Lamborghinis, you can't even put a mile on it without it losing value. So somebody else had the opportunity to take value from you without your consent and without your knowledge. And for that, I'm sorry. And the gentleman who bought that Lamborghini, I'm so sorry for you, man, because I listened to your story, and you're friends with Val, and you like traveled with him, and now everything that we thought we knew about a hobby or our love, I have a deep love for cars, is gone. You know, when I'm ready to get rid of the Rolls Royce, I'm going to go to Keeler like everybody else, and I'm going to buy a BMW. And I'm not doing this ever again because it was fun, but this is how it ended. So I guess I'll end this with that. You know, sorry for everybody or anybody that wanted to talk to me that I've kind of just pushed it off. You know, this is just one of those things where it's like, there's not much that I can really add other than tell my side of the story, make peace with it all. When I hit stop on this video, I'm moving on, you know, and I hope that you guys all can find some peace in this. Val, if you ever watch this, shame on you, man. You know, you hurt a lot of people. You broke a lot of people's hearts. That sucks. Shame on you. But God bless everybody else.